Hello everybody, and welcome to the DM Journal. I am Jack from JOC Tabletop, and it has been a while since I've done one of these because of a video I was working on that I put out last week. It's about playing Pokemon Tabletop very easily. If you're interested in that, go watch it. It's pretty interesting, I would argue. But regardless, this new installment of the DM Journal comes with my realization in competence of making thumbnails and them not looking like total shit. So that's neat. It also comes with very little news on behalf of the stuff we've been working on. Things have sort of steadied out a little bit. I've not had a huge amount of time to put work into the adventure, but Katie is still working hard on the art and has really hit a stride with it at the moment. She's working at a pretty decent pace. We may have to push release back a little bit, but again, it depends on what happens. Katie is busy with NaNoWriMo at the moment, so, you know, that's as fair, this is, you know, reasonably important, so, you know, we may have to push release back, but not any more than a couple of months, maybe February at the absolute latest. Still aiming for a late December, early January release, but, you know, stuff happens, might get pushed back. We'll have to see. I'm well into Chapter 2 and have started brushing on Chapter 3 of the adventure. Again, not had a huge amount of time to sort of work with it at the moment. It's still, you know, Katie's going through every so often and doing some editing for me because, well, if you're writing anything, you need an editor. You need one. They'll catch the things you miss. Believe me, they will. I had an idea for what I wanted to talk about this episode, because I've been watching a lot of Extra History, and I've been playing a lot of Crusader Kings. With that comes, well, history. What kind of history you want to write about your world. My personal method of doing it is probably terrible, and is needlessly detailed, going country by country and detailing every single little bit of their existence, and that's time-consuming and not really worth it. So I would advise you don't do that. If you want to, definitely do it. But if you feel like you need to, probably don't. But I am going to introduce a method that I wish I had used, and think would actually be very helpful to people. And this is to create a table of rulers. And it is exactly what it sounds like. It is a table that lists the rulers of a nation or state that you're writing the history of. Now, of course, not all states are run by monarchs or what have you. So this may be a little more complicated if you have more of sort of a council or like a democracy that runs a state. But this works perfectly for like autocracies or, you know, states where one or two, maybe even three individuals hold a significant amount of power. And this comes with just listing a ruler, when they ruled from, when they ruled to, what their relationship to the previous ruler was, how they died or abdicated, and what significant things happened during their reign, and just list them, give dates maybe, and this sort of long table creates some very interesting interactions and events that can happen within a country's history that you can touch on. Like, this king is remembered for being trash and being killed by a bunch of peasants because he sucked. This queen, she was pretty hardcore. She took over like 3 fucking counties in a month. You know, that kind of giving detail to the reign of monarchs or leaderships or cabinets that can really shape your world and your world's politics. Because whilst it's more than well and good saying these two nations hate each other because they just do, having even a vaguely detailed history of, yeah, they've been to war like 20 times in the last 100 years. Yeah, being able to just tell your players that, like, yeah, these guys go to war, like, a lot, and they hate each other. That added immersion makes them really think, like, huh, this you know, the world is bigger than we are. Stuff has happened before us, and stuff will happen when we're not here. And that level of immersion, I feel, is very important to achieve. So, from here, I figured I would show you a couple of my ruler tables, and show you the kinds of things that one could include. On the screen now, there is my ruler list. Now, if you can't see this, there'll be a link to it in the description. If you're watching on mobile, this may be very difficult to read. I understand that. There'll be a link in the description. But the main body of it you should be able to at least grasp from a glance here. It shows a list of the rulers of this country, Lunda. It shows any titles they may have. It just so happens that all of these guys do have titles. The years from which they reigned, their relationship to the previous ruler, cause of the end of their rule, and then significant events during their rule with dates. Now, I've gone pretty overboard with this, and I would suggest you be a little more conservative with what you write about. If you want to go all in, you are more than welcome to, but certainly don't feel like you need to, because I'm pretty sure I went way overboard. But regardless, this structure, I feel, is very, very helpful for building world history, because when you sort of compound this with all the other states that you have in your world, you end up with a comprehensive world history that is, when you put it all together, even if separately they look quite bland or empty, when you put them all together, they're huge. So much stuff you will have written, and you will have for these nations and these countries. And I think a lot of people might see this as kind of pointless, and that's fair. Like, if history of your world has like no real bearing to the story at hand, then, you know, this is definitely not worth your time at all. But if, you know, you want a detailed or even remotely detailed world history, I would strongly advise you do something like this. Even if you don't do this specifically, having a list of rulers and what happened during their reign, I would argue, is a very good way to structure this kind of this kind of thing. If you want to just do like a big timeline, that also works, but I would argue is a little less intuitive. It might be a little harder to read, maybe, unless you color code it specifically. Not to mention that software that makes nice looking timelines is either really expensive or shit. So I don't know. It is ultimately, of course, up to you what you decide to do, but I figured it is worth presenting this concept and whether people like it. So yeah, that's that. In regards to the games I've been running, games have been going quite slowly lately because people's schedule means we have to start a lot later. But we did play a little bit of the Nightfall campaign, which is the one that takes place in the world that this ruler chart is in. And that has been going very, very well. They've been doing some interesting stuff. They just finished a big quest. Learned a little bit about each other's characters, a very small amount, mind you, but a little bit all the same. And that is going exceedingly well, and I'm quite happy with how it's going at the moment. As for the other game, again, due to schedules, the games are a lot shorter, so we get substantially less done in the sort of 2.5 to 3 hours that we play at a time. And to some people that may seem like a reasonable length of time, but it varies from group to group what feels like a long time and what feels like none at all. And to me, it certainly feels like none at all. Feels like it's over before it's even goddamn started, especially since we start so late. Sometimes as late as 8 o'clock, and we, can't go much later than sort of 10, half 10. People have work and that sort of thing. Which sucks, but, ultimately it can't be avoided. These kinds of things tend to happen. But, regardless, that is the DM journal for this couple of weeks. I will be back, hopefully in a regular schedule soon, and with the videos looking a little nicer, sort of slowly getting better, hopefully building up to, I don't know, People actually watching this. That's the end goal, at least. But regardless, if you've enjoyed this, press the buttons. There's a few of them. You decide which ones you want to press. It's up to you, really. But you know they're there because everybody else tells you they're there. And like YouTube, pretty simple system. Like, it's not hard. Just press the buttons if you want to. Don't press them if you don't care. It's fine. Yeah, do what you like. I hope you enjoyed this. I'll see you in a couple of weeks.